All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all back here. It has been an interesting week for me. I will say that I am a little bit tired of Toronto having unpredictable weather, but I guess this is just what we have to deal with the onset of climate change. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host K-Libra. How you doing, K-Libra?
I don't know why you would say the weather is unpredictable when it's been predictably bad.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's just like, I don't know. I had to fucking walk outside today at like 8:30 in the morning, and it was a fucking torrential downpour. And then within 2 hours, it was like, oh, nice sunny, 4 degrees Celsius. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why is it 40 Fahrenheit out here now? What the fuck?
I don't know what to tell you. Canada needs to fucking get a grip or something. I don't know. Everybody needs to get a grip. New York is going to flood, and I'm going to cry again.
Seawalls, maybe? Seawalls?
Sure. Just they're going to be built around the World Trade Center.
Yeah, probably.
That's what's going to happen.
And fuck New Jersey, right?
New Jersey already needs to sell water so that you can drink it cleanly. What the fuck, dude? Yeah. I mean, good things that have been happening. It's been kind of a hard week, but I have amassed a small collection of Magic cards that are all transformation themed.
Yes.
Because I just didn't want to let that pass, and they're all presented in a nice way where everybody can just ogle them, and I can ogle them whenever I want. So I'm entertained by that. Maybe I'll show people. I don't know if anybody wants to see them.
I think that would be cool. And you know what else is cool to show people? Ways in which they can support us on patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. See, I can do it smoothly too.
Excellent.
You know?
Yeah.
We have a wonderful Discord filled with wonderful people who give us money to continue to talk into your ear holes. So if you'd like to do that for us, you can do that. And you can also, do the whole like, share, subscribe thing on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other places that I can't remember because there's 5 billion podcast sites.
Yeah. And share it with your normie friends. If you can't pay, it's nice when people share.
Oh, absolutely. We always encourage normies to listen to the podcast because they can have an illuminating time too, like we hope to for everyone. So
illuminating and probably eye-opening. They'll probably discover something. And one of the things I'm going to be happy to discover is actually speaking to our guest today, LemonFont.
Mm-hmm.
You please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm LemonFont, or Connor. I'm a not safe for work artist who specializes in transformation-type works, along with some other stuff as well. I also animate on the side. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here on TF Tuesday with Zill and Libra.
Yeah, man. It's great to have you. It's been a really long time since I've started, looking at your stuff, and, it's evolved in such amazing ways. Nobody makes the stuff like you do. It's you have built your own identity. It's cool how you went from kind of like just trying to do a bit of an anime style to something that's really your own, and not just that, but the themes and all that other stuff that we're going to get into. But yeah, and if nobody recognizes your name and they're like into transformation, I'm kind of sad about that, and I'm glad I got to at least tell Zill about it, way beforehand, because that was also like something to find where I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I'm like, oh, this is going somewhere, and lots of cool shit.
Yeah, it was really interesting to me because I think just in terms of like, sometimes our interests are quite far apart, and so Libra has his own kind of repertoire of things he'll check, for content and stuff. And so when he was sharing with me your stuff, because I hadn't heard of it before, I was like, we were going to completely different areas of the web, and I was like, oh, there's like a whole new world over here. Like, all right, this is cool. I can get into this. So
I also like talking to other people about Lemon stuff because they'll bring up something that's absurd and they'll be like, that's dumb. I'm like, I know somebody who did that actually really good.
Well, thank you very much for the praise, everybody. I've been doing this for about 10 so years now, or maybe longer now. Yeah, definitely longer. And yeah, it's been quite a transformation, pardon the pun. But yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and I, hope to keep improving and to keep doing more and more stuff and bringing more awareness to transformation-based works.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I'm glad that you're still going and that you're expanding on, your skills and everything and just trying a bunch of stuff. And so transformation, yeah, that's what you're here for, because the first thing I ever saw yours was Shapeshifter. And, I think that's what got you. I think that's what got you the greatest amount of awareness. I don't know if I'm correct. Is that really what started to pop you off on the internet for people?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't shy away from the fact that Shapeshifter has been my greatest success and has been the sort of the tentpole of what people might know me for. It's I started that back in 2012. Still going right now. But I guess we can get more into that into the podcast. But yeah, it's what I'm primarily known for. It's really what's associated with my name. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of the series as well. So I'm happy to just admit that.
Yeah. I was curious to know more about what kind of sparked the story behind it, how you kind of came up with it or what inspirations you drew from.
So I guess we have to go all the way back to when I was first starting off as a not safe for work content creator. And I think like many people in my position, you're sort of you try going maybe, clean as an artist, just doing normal stuff for the time being. And then you're just oh, maybe I want some money. So then you start asking around how do you get paid for art? And back then the thing they would point you towards was Fur Affinity. Just go on there. Furries are known for being very generous with commissioning and such like that, so I tried to do that. So I started on Fur Affinity for a bit, and I did these sort of sequences of monster girls, sort of very Monster Musume-esque, right. And stuff like that. And they were very sort of transformation based. They were women transforming into succubus and all that sort of stuff. And then one day I had the idea for a sequence where it was it'd be the POV of you were talking to a changeling or a shapeshifter. So it'd be a very easy excuse to display a variety of transformations in one, not just a straight linear A to B state. So I thought that would be kind of fun. Did the sequence. It was about 36 panels, and then it ended. People wanted more of it, so I was okay, I'll expand on this. I'll make a little story out of it, and then it quickly got out of control and turned into this massive lore-intensive epic. And maybe I got a bit too over his head, but I'm gonna attempt to finish it and stick to it.
I don't think I've seen anybody really do a story in that kind of format, though, especially for so long.
Yeah, that's one of the big inspirations for my art. It was I'm not satisfied with a lot of erotic stories that just have thing happens, they have sex or they transform, and then that's it. We don't follow up on how does the world change around them and all that stuff. So that was very much my driving factor of making serialized works of okay, and then she transforms into a clown, but what happens the next day? What happens on the Sunday? What happens when you have to go back to work like this? Yeah. I'm very interested in that concept of let's explore this world we're building here, and not just make it a encapsulated occurrence.
One of the things I like about the way you do it is how you kind of weave all that stuff together without kind of stopping for a long time to explain something. Things kind of come along, but even when you're doing the more even when you're just explaining, I'm missing the word, you're actually still moving things along. So I think you got a pretty good grip on at least pacing. And
yeah, the exposition flows nicely.
Exposition,
thank you.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that keeps me going, because I don't know if you've heard in any of the episodes you might have been listening to, but one of the things that bothers me about a bunch of writing is that it feels like people will set up this entire character to just kind of deconstruct or destroy, and then that's it. And I don't really care, because I know what the setup is going to be, and it's not gonna really go with anything or pay off really. The payoff is them turning into something and casting off all that stuff, but it's also very predictable and not interesting to me. But you don't seem to do that.
Yeah. Yes, definitely, I would agree to that. That first and foremost, I'm an author, so like I'm very much caring about like the consistency of my writing and the quality of my writing above everything else. And I always prioritize verisimilitude of characters. They have to feel real, and they have to feel like living, breathing people, and they sort of like, you know, they interact with the environment around them, and they're not like, for lack of a better term, like anime characters, you know, like, where they're just sort of like overtop expressions and sort of like, you know, I just try to imagine like, oh, what if this person I knew in real life actually transformed? What would they do and how would they react? And, you know, I try to like, you know, imagine to a degree like how real they could be, and that's something I very much pride myself on. Yeah, very grounded, you know, try to like make the dialogue feel natural and stuff like that. I don't try to rely on too much of like punny type of wording I see in like a lot of like erotic fiction, and sort of like it has to feel real for me to care, and I want to respect everyone else who feels the same way about that.
I want to pick on something there actually, because I think this is the first time we've had someone who, you know, primarily shows their work through like art, comics, etc., but has described themselves as an author, and I think that's really interesting. So I was curious to pick just a little bit more on that as to why you kind of gravitate towards that term instead of like, you know, artist, illustrator, whatever.
I guess because primarily I'm very concerned with the writing, and I think that I don't have, like, I think I can slack in other departments, but I think writing is where you have to nail it. I think you can have a transformation comic be totally with stick figures, but as long as the writing was there, I think that would, you know, connect to people more than just, like, flashy spectacle. So that's what I pride myself on.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that perspective, and it's one of the things that makes me internalize things like, oh, Faye and Dawn as characters, and rather not just being like, oh, Faye is the one that's just kind of like trying to make her way through the awkwardness of her abilities, and how she's kind of in control but kind of losing control, and blah blah blah, and she's just weird, and Dawn is just a fucking bitch. But no, like they both have like their own struggles, and like they cope in their own ways, and I wouldn't be able to get that if you didn't write it, you know, if you didn't express it that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I tried to do.
Yeah, and then so it shows, and I think that's why I find like the like a bunch of the other characters like really memorable. Like
thank you.
You probably caught enough like shit as an umbrella term for like the whole fucking Nicholls series that you've been doing.
Yes.
Okay, so that one, I don't know if we can get into that now, or if you want to do is like, you know, we talk about Shapeshifter, we talk about Nicholls, but Nicholls was totally like I did this on a sort of like a dare kind of thing.
Really?
So like the original inspiration behind Nicholls was there was a 4chan green text post about some guy wanting to have sex with a clown girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
But go ahead.
If anyone remembers this one, yeah, it's like
everyone knows this guy.
But she is like, you know, she's a Wereclown, you know, and I basically the first issue of Nicholls copied that sort of outline, you know, verbatim. You know, she like laugh and your nose gets bigger and she gets lunar-like honkers. That's something I really latched onto. So Nicholls started off as that, and then I sort of explored that more, as in like Nicholls sort of represents to me something about like the embarrassment we feel during erotic situations, and how we can like be afraid to like expose our vulnerable side and feel like, you know, we can come across as a clown when we're trying to maybe take ourselves seriously in a sexual sense. And that's something I really try to get there in a very pretentious way. But, you know, it's just lighthearted clown porn. You know, that's all you need to care about.
I really think that you do that in such a unique and great way, because I remember when Libra was showing me Nicholls, he was like, oh, you got to see this. This is like Wereclown porn. I was like, what? So obviously I'm looking through it, and that kind of analogy definitely kind of resonated with me, in the sense of I feel like this can touch on so many different kinks. It's just, you know, obviously you're tackling it through the realm of clowns because of the green post and everything, but it really does speak, I think, to how like internally scared many of us are when it comes to vulnerable situations like that. And so to express yourself in such a loud haha way, like I think it's a really interesting take of like trying to express that through a comic.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a sort of running theme underneath the comic. I've run the the third issue right now, which is kind of wrapping up my little arc on it, and I'm gonna shelf it for a bit after that. But that's kind of like the main theme, was just about how we view ourselves in perception of the world around us and how other people look at us. And I didn't want to make that like a like a too overbearing theme for my writing, because
Right.
themes are good for writing, but like being bludgeoned with them is horrible. When you're just like, I get it. So that's just like, it's just like a running like underlying baseline of the comic, and then the vocals of like the clown porn and the comedy and the spectacle is the forefront. Yeah. So
yeah,
and I gotta say, you said it's pretentious to you, but I don't think so, because I was reading it and I'm like, okay, this is weird, whatever. But I want to see where this goes. And as she was going, and she was feeling bad, and he was just being really supported, and I was just like, oh man, she's so fucking sweet. I just want to tell her that it's okay, like as weird as it all is, and he's taking it so goddamn well. And that whole spectacle is like, I think like. I think pretentiousness in writing really comes with, like you said, not the bludgeoning, but the way I want to paint it to other people listening is, imagine if somebody took a situation and you were looking in on it, and it's like they always will occasionally turn to you, knowing that you're watching, to tell you this is what's happening and why and what you're supposed to feel. When in the meantime, because you made it feel natural, it was like, here are two people who are by themselves and you just happen to be watching. They're not going to be turning to the audience at any point saying, there's no need for her to be embarrassed. Everybody's different. No matter what they say, everybody should feel good about themselves. And I'm going to tell her that because it's the right thing to do. Nicholls, I love you and you are special. He makes me feel accepted, and I cannot imagine my life in any other way now.
Yeah. I should rewrite Nicholls to be more like a shonen manga. So like everyone very much tells everybody how they're feeling at all times. So we're just not confused on this. Like we don't need to like, oh, well, what does that mean? What am I supposed to feel here?
In a way, Nicholls in Hand kind of does that, but with trash talking herself.
Yeah,
exactly.
The trash talking is so funny to me. When we were reading it, it was like, it really embellishes just the like dramatic stakes of the situation, but also it is so like supremely funny to me in like that context of like a sexual situation.
Yeah. I really had a lot of fun writing Nicholls in Hand, because one of my big inspirations for that was I don't know if you ever see the film Idle Hands. It had Seth Green in it. Was it Seth Green? Yeah, I think so. It was like a schlocky horror film from like the early 2000s. It was about like a possessed hand that goes around killing people. But it's also like slash stoner comedy. So like, it's, very much of the time. So that was my kind of inspiration there. And my aim with that comic was, I wanted at least one person to read it and was like, I don't know, the puppet looks kind of bad though, I wanted to convey a little bit of like sass and be like, I believe this puppet, it probably would give a really good blowjob.
If you talk it hard enough, people will believe you. But
exactly,
I don't need to spell out the whole thing. Just read it for yourselves. It's worth it. I'm not into clowns. Well, shut up and read it.
Yeah, then maybe you will be. You never know.
Exactly. A lot of people say they like clowns now because of that. So
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
you never know.
We love when people are awoken to the clussy. Okay, like I love that for them. So
wait, wasn't there like, I don't know if it was directed at you, but I remember some post online and it's just like, "Fuck you, I like clowns now. Fuck you, this is your fucking fault." And they were like really fucking angry.
Oh man, I hope that's me. I'd love that.
I remember seeing that post somewhere, but it just seemed like somebody was so fucking pissed off about it, and I thought it was hilarious.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say I want to bring it back to Shapeshifter just for a hot second, because I know we'll talk more about Nicholls later, but obviously Shapeshifter is not complete, and as you've said, like it's kind of turned into this thing that you weren't expecting. What would you say was like kind of the moment when you realized that this was going to be like such a massive project for you? Like, was there like any point where you were continuing writing the story and you're like, oh, this is gonna be like a big thing?
I think when I ended part 3 and people weren't satisfied. That's when I was like, oh, okay. Because like part 1 to 3 is like, I would say okay, that's what I envisioned the complete arc of it to be. It's just like a nice trajectory of like, we go from point A to B to C. And I think we're good there. But people wanted more, and I obliged, and I thought like, well, but it's true to my earlier statement. I wanted to see what happens after, everyone gets their happily ever after sort of thing.
Right.
And, because life's like that. It just doesn't stop at the end of the week. It keeps going on to Monday, on next Monday, So that's definitely what to do with Shapeshifter. So back during part 3, it was like, kind of like overwhelming me with how big it got in scope. Not just in like my scope or anything. Like I still did like one panel a day, and I probably made a lot of coloring errors. That was still me, me today. But it did get a lot. It did go outside my scope when people that like I was looking up to online were like, oh yeah, I really like Shapeshifter, and that's when I was like, oh my god, it's gone everywhere. And then another thing that sort of like made me aware of its scope was if you're familiar with the hentai gallery eHentai, which uploads of it. I'm currently the top rated gallery on that site, and it's been like that for at least 10-ish years. So I'm the most viewed gallery of all time, and I'm like, oh my god, my art was so bad. And everyone's got to look at that. And you just go there, and like all the comments are just like from people in China just being like, what the fuck is this? Why is this better than League of Legends porn? So like it's just okay. I'm so sorry, But die mad.
Don't apologize. You're giving them a public service by even releasing this stuff. We've said this before on our podcast, but like I always just appreciate when artists put the art out there in general, because they're not under an obligation to do that. So like, thank you for putting your art out there, and like if people don't like it, that's fine. They can go check out something else. But clearly, as you just pointed out, rightfully so, like there's a lot of people who are interested in what you're putting out, right? So
yeah, you couldn't stop me if you paid me, so sorry.
I guess people will just have to pay to keep going. Oh boy.
Exactly. Like that meme image, buy my silence, $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And since like you're going to keep going anyway, all right, so yeah, Shapeshifter, the big pop and the thing that's still going, and what is, what do you think it influenced most of like the other things aside from like the direct Shapeshifter spin-offs? Did it like pop off any other idea directly?
Definitely, yeah. I think with Shapeshifter, it made me realize that there's an audience out there. At least it's hard to say like if that audience is always there or if it was because of the comic, but like after doing it, I was very much aware of people want story in their erotic fiction. They really want like characters they can believe, and characters who might have emotions that are not conducive to erotic feel-good vibes. Like if someone just has like like an off day, like that's just not going to be in the erotic comic where someone gets pumped full of cum every second. So I wanted to like, I was very much aware like, people want just like characters and stories they can latch onto. So that sort of influenced me to like, I should take more careful consideration of like stories going forward and have them like, this one fulfills a certain niche of a fetish, but then let's go over that and maybe like expand upon it and like like make it feel more natural. So doing Shapeshifter in the sense is like influenced me to give more of a shit about writing and treat pornography with the sort of like same respect as any other medium, I guess. That would be very arty and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, just because it's porn doesn't mean it has to be creatively bankrupt or anything. Yeah. And I think that it shows a lack of maturity or like, I don't know, just thought, if that's the kind of way that you're going to carry yourself through life. It's just porn. Like, who cares? Like, all right, man, lots of people care.
Yeah.
It's the like fucking is the reason that all of us are here. Might as well make something interesting out of it on the way there.
Yeah.
And what is a romance story but often a precursor to fucking and possibly lots of fucking?
Very well said. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think, there is somewhat of a stigma, at least online, just in general, not like specific to like a furry community or anything, but like I think the broader normie community online, I think there is a stigma towards porn, and in particular like the expectation of like, oh, it's just going to be this one thing that I have like imagined in my head, and it's just like, oh, it's like whatever, there's not really anything to it, there's no artistic creativity or anything like that. And they're missing out, because frankly I think that content exists in spades, but it is really special when artists will like keep that in mind when they're creating their art, and like have a very clear through line as to what kind of message they want to relay to the audience, besides of course also being very hot, like putting the two together, it's great. So
no, hard agree. I think that you are definitely right on that, Zil, that like, I guess eroticism is very much suppressed even in today's age. Like, I think puritanical is coming back in a big way.
100%.
I don't know how that happened. But it definitely feels like it's repressed, suppressed, and people just sort of like brush it off to the side when it's so like intrinsically woven into all art forms. And just for like a little bit of context, I was listening to your Saberspark video last night on the topic. Great video, by the way. Everyone check it out. Links below. But like one thing that I think that comes across in that video you did of the deep dive was that there's a big frustration that there is not a acknowledgement of the erotic element to transformation, and that can be frustrating for a lot of people. And me myself especially, I know that like you tend to get like a sort of a sideways glance that people know you're working in erotic work, and they're a bit like ashamed to sort of like associate with you. So it's an uphill struggle, but I think we're making headway with it every day.
Yeah, I agree with that. It makes it easier when you are able to confidently say like, yeah, I make porn for a living, and not say bashfully or hiding your face or scrunching your body, just like, I make porn for a living. Like, you make porn? Yeah, what do you do? What do you work for, like a financing company? What the fuck do they do? Something atrocious, I'm sure.
Something that's far less impactful and enjoyable.
They probably fuck over more people than my line of work.
Yeah. and you literally make nothing for anybody. I have something to show for it. Everybody has something to show for it at the end of that.
Exactly.
It's ironic, but I am glad that things are kind of like moving ahead, and that's because like people have started to realize that it's not just a side thing. It's a fucking living. It's work, and a lot of people don't fucking get that. So when they want to be shitheads towards artists or or porn actors or anything like that, that's work. It's fucking work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also like a bit of I mean, not to get too much into the drama side of this, but there's also a bit of snobbery from people saying that safe for work art is not real art. And like and they say like, oh, anybody can be a good artist if they just sell out for titty. And I could show you like a sea of artists who have tried and can't quite break that. So like there's still a lot of effort from people in the not safe for work community. Yes, I'm very much aware of like people make a lot of money from it, and it's end of the day, that's still a lot of talent and effort that goes into that. So
yes. That's the thing that people don't realize. If you think it's like, oh, you just make porn and that's easy money. make some good porn yourself.
Yeah.
Not just any shitty thing where like the perspectives are mismatched and you don't quite know where things fit or how people fit together. Go, just make it. Just make it and be successful. Go the fuck ahead. Watch.
Exactly. You know, I could show you furry artists that could draw mouths better than biologists. You know, it's just the level of technical display of like effort there. You know.
Yeah.
And then like and now because everybody's growing up and skills are improving, and you're also an example of this. There are people who say, I want like mainstream content. Wouldn't it be cool if it was like a movie? And well, guess who's growing up to make that shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. I think we're definitely seeing a bit of a soft renaissance in that regard. I think I've noticed it when Resident Evil 8 came out, and it just had a big dommy mommy zombie in it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I thought, like, yeah, the tides are turning. We're winning.
Okay, so, like, Dimitrescu, she fucking showed up, and I'm just like, okay, she's 8 feet tall, and she's very attractive. And that doesn't hit all my buttons very hard, but sure, I'm on board. Yeah.
Yeah, I look at Dimitrescu and I'm like, nobody accidentally designs this character. You know, like
100%.
they know what they're doing.
But then mild spoiler, you do end up like clashing with her a bunch, and what does she do? She turns into like a giant fucking dragon.
Yeah, she transforms. It all comes back to this, you know?
It's great. And then there's like a moment where she's like partly changed, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. And then like she bursts out the fucking wall, and she's an even more like twisted monster. And I'm like, you know, I think I still might. If you won't kill me.
Yeah, she's stabbing me, but she's kind of bad though, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's just like I gotta respect her. She's not gonna let you get away with this.
Yeah, it has been so nice to see, as like, you know, as we were just kind of talking about, I think people who especially like grew up like 80s, 90s, aughts, getting into like kind of these industries and influencing them in these wonderful ways. I mean, yeah, I to further your point, they knew exactly what they were doing, and there were enough people up the chain as well who also knew what they were doing, who were like, yeah, go for that. I'm very thankful.
What was the ad? It was like, get all how many inches of venom or something like that.
Oh yeah. So when Venom came out, they were like, oh yeah, you can get all 18 inches of this Venom statue, and I was like, they fucking know. I mean, I felt seen, and I was like, yes, thank you. You know, so like, there you go.
Yep. And feeling seen means sometimes a bit of self-discovery, and I feel like there's a good amount of that in your work, because that was one of the things that stood about Shapeshifter was the guy who Faye eventually meets, and suddenly they're doing stuff together, but he's doing more stuff than he would have ever realized he'd be into. And then I kind of see that like in I see that kind of like coming up in a number of other things where people don't realize things about themselves. So like yeah, I mean, how much of it do you think that you know, reflects on your own self-discovery, you know, your art, things like that?
Oh man, I'd say a lot of it. Yeah, definitely. With Shapeshifter, I think it was my first big erotic work, and also one of the key tags that gets associated with Shapeshifter is just dicks. You know, that's a big theme in that. And, you know, I guess, you know, at the time, you know, being just a straight person, like seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm on something here, you know. So it's definitely a lot of self-discovery that way, and sort of like finding out what I was into through doing Shapeshifter, and sort of seeing that sort of like that sort of resonance with like drawing it and then feeling about it, you know. So yeah, definitely with Shapeshifter, there's a lot of like self-discovery, and I think I mirror that in the characters and what they're into and how they like things, like not just from the main character Mike, from his self-discovery, but also with like Faye, sort of like understanding she has like a sort of thing for exhibitionism and stuff like that. So a lot of like themes represented in that. I think that's also a very natural thing in a relationship with somebody, is just be like, oh, I'm into this now, you know, and you sort of like, you feel out these different areas of kinks, and then you see which one fits your personhood and just go with that, you know. So I think it just came about naturally because I wasn't even thinking about it.
Hmm. Were there any kind of kinks that you explored during, like, as you've been creating Shapeshifter that you kind of wanted to test to see how you felt about it, and then we're kind of like, actually, this isn't for me. This is just going to be a pure character thing, or like vice versa?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's one scene I think about in particular, and I think it's the part where, like, Faye falls into a giant woman's butt at one point, and that happens in part 4. And I think today I'm not so much into that. You know, I think at the time I was around a certain group of content creators, and they were all sort of doing that. And I wanted to see for myself, like, oh, you know, does this work? And then, you know, just didn't fit. So there's some things like that in Shapeshifter that, like, you know, I tried. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not too into this. And then, you know, when you're like me and you're just sort of like a rolling Katamari ball of kinks and degeneracy, you sort of like phase in and out of like things you're into that are just weird. And then, you know, like, oh, next week I don't want to talk about that part. That wasn't me.
Yeah. I can relate to some of that.
I just have to say that is such a beautiful way to describe it. I've never heard it described in that way, and I feel seen by that. So thank you for putting it in those terms.
Oh, no worries. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I just think that's great. Again, it's one of like the most outstanding things about it, and I just like that it keeps popping up. I don't feel like a lot of transformation stuff is so much about. Ironically, it's not really about self-discovery so much as it's just like either wanting something or being taken out of something else, but to learn about yourself and just kind of like keep that as a process, you know. Like, okay, what I'm trying to say is, if there's like a long-form story that I think people do, I think what ends up happening is that there seems to be like a conflict that arises so that they can something to fight against so that they can maintain what they've either earned or are trying to get, but not so much like something that make them realize something about themselves even after that event, because like you said, you know, it doesn't just happen once and then boom, you know, nothing is going to ever like change again. It's just going to keep evolving. Other people gonna, you know, move in and out of your life. That's going to change it. Just stuff keeps changing. Change isn't permanent, but change is.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that statement entirely. I don't have anything really much to add to that.
But it's also nice to know that it's confirmed, because I'm just like, man, this stuff seems so fucking thoughtful, and I'm seeing it now, and I'm very glad for that. So like, if it was just like, you know, just trying a bunch of things out, what were the things that like stuck with you?
Well, I think it's definitely the things you can see still very present in my works today, and above all else, I think I'm a sucker for huge titties, you know.
Don't worry, me too.
Figuratively and literally as well. You know,
we do love those sucking.
You know, who doesn't love a big titty? So that's just like some of the themes. I also like expansion and growth, but also like I'm very much attuned to sort of like the emotions of that. Like I really like care a lot about like humility and sort of like corruption and sort of like giving into sort of like moral degradation in a sense like that.
Yeah,
that's like really big, like hot stuff for me. So like a lot of that I like to do. And yeah, I'm also like a fan of like body horror as well. But like, you know, maybe not so much Fly, but more like you know, Pinocchio just getting like a big nose but not know what to do with it or something. I don't know.
It's almost like not like the like super gritty body horror, more I wouldn't say it like cartoonish, but like a little bit more like fantastical body horror.
Horror spooky. I don't know. Like a softer term of it. Yeah.
That's my problem with the terms like spooky and horror. It all is supposed to be like repulsive, you know, when that's not really the objective. But I still can't settle on a term that I feel better fits it.
The impreciseness of our terms sometimes is a sore point, I think. And this comes with like so many different areas, but when it comes to like transformation stuff, it is kind of funny to me in a bit of a sad way that we haven't figured out a better term, so we're just kind of stuck with these other ones, and we have to like kind of disclaim them to really explain what we mean,
Yeah. I don't know how to sum up a sentence of, I just want the changes to seem like they're a strain on the body in such a way where it's arduous, but ultimately like worth it or pleasurable or something like that. It's not like, it can be strange, but I'm not aiming to like scare people. Even if people find it scary, that's still not necessarily my objective. And yeah, I just haven't found a better term or set of words for it or anything. I'm gonna keep thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do like that. You got the sex and sexuality. It's easy to see with your stuff, and there's a focus on relationships, and we're coming back to Nicholls on this because it's the most recent example. And
thank you.
Yeah, so like, what got you focusing on relationships? Because I mean, with Shapeshifter, I suppose it was sort of like a progression thing, but I don't know if that was something early or if you had like something happen after that made you think like, yeah, you know what, showing relationships is something that you want to do more of.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard to say, because I think relationships in fiction are very focused on the spectacle of finding your true love, and it's always about that, you're meeting that person for the first time and everything works, sparks head off, and just like, we have chemistry now. Believe me, trust me, we have chemistry now, I'm kind of frustrated with a lot of like fiction where like two people get together and I don't believe it. So I'm very much dedicated to like, okay, these two people get together and this is my 500-word essay on why that is so, So that's why I kind of focus on relationships, being a medium, because I think it's a fun avenue to explore, and I think that it doesn't get enough attention to people who are already like entrenched in a relationship and not really like people who are seen in that regard. So I wanted to write for that.
Okay. And so did you have like any relationships, personal or in media, that kind of like motivate you or like have inspired some of the stories? If it's personal, you can just give a flat yes or no, and that's fine.
Oh, no, yes. No, I'm totally fine to talk about it. I think in fiction, I guess inspired to, but also in a bad way. Like, I want to do better than this, And if you're a fan of the series, I'm sorry, but also I'm also a fan. But Scott Pilgrim, I think, is a good example of like, I don't buy it. I don't buy that like him and Ramona have this chemistry together, and I'm gonna do it better. No, that's what my thinking was back then, and a bit immature. I don't think that anymore. I think that it's still a good story. Just has some sort of issues, but yeah, that sort of inspires me to sort of like, I can show people connecting better than this. And that's what got me thinking about that as well. And also like, definitely like there's definitely been a couple of inspirations from my real life of friends that like I see the way they interact with each other, and it's hard to sort of give people maybe like, your advice or opinions on how they can like overcome any of their troubles. And I wanted to see if I could explore that in a comic. So like, I wanted to sort of like depict that with the sort of Shapeshifter, that there's like a certain aspect that like causes tension between our characters. And I wanted to see how I, as a writer, would sort of like overcome that, and how like, well, but also paying attention to the fact that these are real people. How do they sort of like come to a resolution and try to like, work it out from there? So I'm definitely like inspired by people I see around me, and I try to like depict that and all its warts and everything. Like, I don't think that relationships are not pretty most of the time, but they are ultimately fulfilling and rewarding. And I think that's what I definitely wanted to capture in Shapeshifter. And I think moving into Nicholls, I made it a bit more lighthearted. I think Shapeshifter was back in a sort of like a more tumultuous time in my life, and I was in a different headspace. And Nicholls represents that sort of like, I've moved on a bit from the sort of like depressing times,
That's good to know, man, because Nicholls is very wholesome. It's really wholesome.
It also came from like a need of like, well, I was working on Shapeshifter on and off. Like it's currently in the sort of like the semi-hiatus state of part 5, where like I take long breaks between updates because I'm very considering of my next update. I get too, I don't know if there's a word for this, but like if you ever see like artists who take 10 years to work on their album, because they have to get every note right and stuff like that. I'm a bit perfectionist like that, That's why I sort of like am related to Amira when he passed, and sort of like, made a great story, made a very articulate story, but ultimately unfinished by his own hand. And it made me really consider myself, and sort of like, I gotta like, I'm too much into this like Shapeshifter stuff, and I need to sort of break away from it. I need to get like away from this dry or like cold winter landscape where everyone's depressed and moody, and go to somewhere warm and colorful, so that's where Nicholls was born out of that sort of like need to sort of portray a dichotomy there. So yeah.
So you can actually track some of your growth. That's the thing that I really like about art. That you can't you get a vertical slice of people. You can't really tell everything about somebody, but you could find some things, and and so like between like musicians, artists, filmmakers, any kind of creative types. If you track progress over like a fucking decade, you can tell like, oh, what's going on here?
Definitely. I do believe in the saying of like, you color the world, but also it colors you. And I feel that when you write something, if you're writing it like well, you are writing yourself into it. You are on display. You are vulnerable. You are very much like surprisingly open to interpretation, and I try not to do that. I try not to be. Well, I was reluctant to do that writing sometimes, because I was like, if I write and I'm like, depressed, I'm gonna like, everyone's gonna like look at it and then see me for who I am, and it was very scary at the time. So I was kind of very reluctant to do that at times. But now I've learned to like, just go for it, and maybe work on trying to put myself in a better headspace when I'm writing and such. So at least I look better in the writing.
It's like a good way to hold a mirror up to yourself too, if you're willing to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do actually do that investment and that amount of vulnerability, depending on what the context is, when you actually put that into your writing, not only does it just make it better overall, in my opinion, but I also think that it makes the process of creating that art so much more rewarding for yourself, because there's not only just the act of, creating the art, but there's also like, a bit of introspection or exploration or something like that then gets put into the piece as well. And you kind of come out of the process not only having made, fantastic art, but also you've come out of it with like almost a newfound sense of like your own self, to like at least a little bit of a degree. And that kind of reward is something that only comes through putting yourself into your art in that kind of a way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that ultimately, as all humans, we really appreciate seeing ourselves in something, because I got to realize that like, I have struggles, but they're also not insular. Like everyone else probably might be going for the same thing. And to portray that does help us connect to other people. And, I guess showing my vulnerable side does help people connect to me more and enjoy my story and feel it more fulfilling, So that's why I kind of like, I was very put off by insincerity in writing, and like I can't get into an erotic fiction if it's just like, these aren't real feelings or real emotions, nothing is, it's all ironic, I can't do that. No.
Yeah, there needs to be that mark of authenticity in it to actually
bring back like, sincerity for 2024. Bring it back.
Yeah, I do think that we've been getting at least a little bit better on that front, just broadly, because God, I think about like, the early 2010s and how like irony poisoned everything was, and it makes me like so frustrated. And I think we really have moved, like, this is even just in like art or porn even. I think like as a culture, things have been shifting more towards sincerity over time, which is great, and I hope that continues because, like you said, like if you're doing all this like irony stuff, you're just adding like layers of disconnect to what you're actually trying to talk about, and putting up this wall between yourself and the thing that you are maybe ashamed of. Like, it's only going to further your own internal like turmoil, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, you will feel more disconnected to the world around you, and that's not like conducive to a good experience for anybody to read or write.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're social creatures at the end of the day, whether, and we all have different levels of socialization, but we do need connections. And so, being able to at least connect through art, I think, is a valuable way of at least starting to bridge some of those gaps.
Yeah, definitely.
It's actually, Lemon, you ever heard of James Lee Animations?
James Lee Animations. I can't say it's ringing a bell right now, sorry.
Has a character named Knox, and he does these incredibly unique videos. Nobody does the shit like he does either. And one of them is just called like Cringe or something like that. And he's just doing this. He's just being a character of like a cringe like content creator. And then it's just like he's just going over like all the things that people would consider cringe, and one of the things he's like genuinely showing real passion for anything cringe, and it's I recommend this stuff to any and everybody with a brain and a soul.
Yeah, I think my favorite from him is the breaking up with Adobe one.
Oh man!
Oh, really, is that the animator with like the luminous glasses?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. Now, it's all hitting back to me now. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's the same. That's the same guy, James Lee.
Okay.
He's great.
So I do appreciate sincerity, and again, you can tell. You can always tell, and when you can't, then that's like really uncomfortable too. There's like some people do hit those uncanny valleys of emotion. You're not sure what the fuck you're doing there.
Not quite irony, not quite authenticity, some weird thing in between.
Yeah. We live in like a day and age where like somebody could tell you their heartbreaking story on YouTube, and then they're like, all right, time for an ad read.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, what a dystopia we're living in.
Late stage capitalism.
Okay. Take me back.
Yeah.
I
will sell my trauma. It's got to be worth something, guys. My pain has to be worth something. Fuck. Anyway. So,
sorry to get too weird on that one.
No, we love going off on tangents here. So,
any favorite themes to explore? Or have you laid that, or you feel you laid that out clearly?
Also, please, if you have the opportunity, put an ad read here on the episode.
Oh my God. This episode is sponsored by Squarespace.
Yeah. Squarespace Audible, where you could listen to how to get your website started. Just
Raid Shadow Legend, NordVPN.
Oh my God!
Just enter the code,
which is a scam.
Enter the code TFTuesday to get 20% off for 7 days.
My skin is just like crawling.
Get a free loot box every single month with your favorite snacks and kitchen utensils. And
I know you said loot box. I heard lube box, and that did feel more appropriate. But also that's funny.
Okay, lube box. Seriously, I would really be totally fucking cool with like a sex toy sponsorship.
Oh yeah,
I've seen a couple YouTubers who have done it, and I'm like, you know what? That ain't bad. That is one of the more honest things you could fucking peddle.
Pink Cherry, hit us up.
Reach out to Adam and Eve. They do that stuff.
Yeah, why the fuck not? There's this other YouTuber, Mr. Gigi, and he had, I think it was Adam and Eve, but so he was just like, oh yeah, I've been using this stuff, and it's like, it's good, and one of the ads, he just like goes on a small tangent saying like what the fuck? It's like, it's not a problem for me to advertise this stuff. Why is it hot when a girl does it, but gross when a guy does it? Fuck off.
There you go, Adam and Eve. If you're listening to this podcast, which you should be, hit us up.
We're down for interesting openings and sometimes insertions.
Yeah.
Yep. Openings and closings.
Wait, what was it, Zealous? Like, the thing that pisses you off is that when people describe a butthole
as an entrance. I've heard it called an entrance before, and it just I literally will like go up, close the tab. I'm like, no, I can't do this. Like, no fucking thank you. That is not an entrance. I would permit an exit at most, but like, guys, come on, just call it a fucking hole. Like, why do we need to like dance around with this fucking metaphorical language that has completely lost the context of what we're talking about? It's a hole. That's it. Okay. Like, I get so heated about that.
There is no wrong hole. What do you got something to say?
Every hole is a goal.
There you go. There you go. Oh my god.
Explore the themes of holes.
Yeah.
This hole was made for me. It's my hole.
Yeah, it's my hole. Well, on the topic of exploration, I'm curious if you've thought at all about like the kind of impact that maybe you've had on the transformation fandom and how that and then has kind of reflected back on how you feel about your connection to that kink as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a lot more OCs that are just coincidentally shapeshifters now. I don't know how that happened after the comic. But like, I'll just like see like this random like furry OC and just be like, oh, and I'm a shapeshifter, by the way, so not whatever I just described to you doesn't matter. So like, okay, cool. But no, seeing from the impact shapeshifter or any of my works have had, it's weird because like as the artist, you don't want to be too acknowledging of it. You don't want to be like, oh yeah, I inspired that. Like that was me. That was all me. But I think. There's definitely been a lot more push for people experimenting with different type of mediums and ways to portray comics because, like I'm more or less a traditional comic artist, but when I do Shapeshifter, it's a special clause where it's like a single panel per page, and that's because I was very much inspired by the dreaded Homestuck. So. Yeah, so that's kind of like the big influence on that story for me. So I kind of adhere to that style because I think it's very interesting to read as an update kind of format. You're kind of like clicking the next panel. You don't kind of get spoiled on like a big reveal in an update, because like sometimes you could open up a comic page and before you have to lead up to the panel where somebody gets stabbed, you're just like, oh, what happened? And then you have to pretend like you don't know as you get back to that, So it does very much dictate a very interesting type of pacing when I do it like that. So that's what I do with the Shapeshifter. Sorry, what was the question again? I think
it was about the impact that you feel like you've had maybe on the fandom.
Yeah, sorry, the impact. Yeah, so I've definitely seen like people have adopted like that sort of style as like the sort of like the single panel pacing for that. And I think if I was to be so bold as to claim about of influence on people's separate avenues of creativity, I'd probably attribute that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And, one of the things that I think about a lot, and this has kind of been, I think, touched on in some of our past episodes, but like the transformation community is very much not a monolith. I think a lot of people, particularly in maybe some of the spaces I've traveled in, they think like, oh, transformation, it's just like amongst pure furries. And it's like, no, transformation is like, as a fandom, it is stretched out across so many different like sub fandoms and sub communities and things like that.
Languages,
Exactly. And I just think that, there's like a level of like, I wish people had like exposure to the different kinds of communities out there, like that fall under the transformation umbrella, because as you've kind of clearly shown, like you've had your own very clear influence. And I feel like sometimes people in other parts of like the transformation fandom and whatever niches there are, they miss out on really interesting and thought-provoking content, So I'd like to think at the very least that some of the stuff that you've kind of done is you've kind of bridged some of those gaps, at least in terms of niches, because I think your work has fallen into multiple. And that's something that I find really interesting because it can be really challenging to be an artist and also bridge different niches within the transformation fandom.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something I like to challenge myself whenever I do like a sequence or a comic is like sometimes you work with like a contentious type of kink or niche and you're like, not everyone likes this. And my goal is then to be like, okay, how do I make everyone like this? Like that was a big thing with like Nicholls was like people said like it's gonna be a clown comic, that's kind of goofy, that's kind of corny, you know, and I was like okay I need to like approach it with like, okay, I need to get people on the side of like liking clowns. And one of the interesting parts about that design process is you got to set like some sort of rules for yourself. Like one of the big like things on my hidden out of sight design documents for Nicholls is like it will never go into the territory of scary or like horror, because like I don't want ever to be like, I think there's a lot of association with people with coulrophobia, the fear of clowns, for everyone who doesn't know, is that, you know, there's a lot of association with Pennywise and such. Right. So like I never want to put Nicholls as a sort of like thing that also contributes to that, you know, so it's never going to be like any type of horrific depiction of her or any type of like malicious depiction of her. So that's some sort of design there. So that's some of like the sort of challenges when I write like a thing like, okay, if I want people to like it, I can't ever like feed this bad part about it, you know? And there's also like some other fetishes where I'm like, okay, I want to write this and it's very much being commonly attributed to this and I want to bring it away from this territory. Like, to not to get too far ahead, but my next story after Nicholls, it's going to be about a nerd girl transformation sequence.
Yes,
I don't know if
we were talking about this. Yeah, we've seen some of the art. Libra was showing me, and I was like, "Oh, that looks so cool." And anyway. Sorry, I just had to interject because we both were looking at that literally, I think, like yesterday. So. Oh,
okay. yeah. So interesting. This does tie back into a couple of things we mentioned on the podcast so far. Where is with this nerd girl, which is called Winnie. It's going to be about, you know, a girl goes from like, you know, normal plain Jane girl to like bimbofied nerd girl transformation. But the focus of this series will be about how we learn to kill the part of us that cringes, you know?
Right.
So like it's about embracing this sort of like all these pop culture aspects of cringe, like, you know, playing Super Smash Bros out in the open or playing Magic the Gathering. And I feel like it does get like some of these like attributes still get like so that negative geek stigma. And, and I think that I can't really change how people feel about that, but I want to change about people feeling about the shame they might from enjoying that, if that makes sense, you know? So my nerd girl transformation is not about like she transforms into a nerd girl and we make fun of her for that, but more like she transforms into a nerd girl and I feel more comfortable with myself for liking these nerdy things, you know, because I was a child of the 90s and growing up, and if people found out you liked video games, you'd kind of get bullied and stuff like that. So I want to sort of like, and I think that definitely as a culture, we've definitely moved away from all that stuff, but there's still some embers of that flame carrying around, and I want to sort of like touch on that with that comic in the future. So that's something I want to do. I want to challenge myself by, you know, I write this fetish, and if you're not into it, I will somehow bring you along and sort of like make you at least appreciate the story, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to look forward to that. Like big time, because if there's anything that I really like, it's just you think of shit that I wouldn't have like conceptualized. Like I don't remember the name of the story. I don't know, it was called like Liberty for All or something.
Yeah, that was the Cancole boat Americanification transformation comic.
Oh yes,
What a funny little thing that was.
Shit. Like, but that's just an example of just like, wow. It's one of the things that keeps me like looking at your stuff, and even if it's something that I don't think I'm gonna like, I just kind of click through it and I'm just like, what's going on here, you know? I think the other one was like a pearl necklace, I think.
Pearl necklace, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one's a really good one as well, because like I think I'm also very interested in the sort of different mediums of transformation. Like, I'm not so much of a big fan of like magical transformation, because I think big part of the enjoyment of transformation is the sensuality of it. You need to feel like it's actually happening, and for someone to be like, poof, you're something else now. It's just like, oh, okay, I don't care.
Yeah, underwhelming.
Yeah, underwhelming. It's like, so I want it to be
sensational transformation.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly. And then with Pearl Necklace, that was a very interesting one because it is a very much a poof transformation. Like it is from poof to part B. But then there's also like the sense of like there's no memory of how we got to this part. And then there's like the trajectory of the comic is all about the self-discovery along the way and the sort of like accepting of a new reality, which I think is a not a commonly explored theme I've seen in some transformation comics. So I was very much a fan of like the whole reality transformation as a different trope or genre.
Yeah,
like that's a thing that bugs me with, for instance, with like anything TG, is if somebody gets changed, right, and it's just suddenly, okay, I'm a woman now. Suddenly, I crave cock. And I have no question in my mind about that.
I think you already crave cock. Maybe you're just like, all right.
Maybe you already do, but it's just like, but it just seems like kind of a default.
Yeah.
Like nobody questions it. Like women equal wanting dick, and that's just kind of like, no. If I did get turned into a woman, and say there was something in my brain being like, I think I'd really like to take a dick. I think I'd struggle with that a bit, or at least be like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I want to try this. It feels weird, like just the thought of it is like confusing to me. If it is like pure, like strongly biological or something, like how do you fucking come to terms with that? Like, you see, Pearl Necklace as porn doesn't do anything for me, right. But I remember the story.
Yeah, the story's great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Story.
Thank you very much. It was that was so fun to do, like the sort of like the background research on it. Again, one of my clients and friends who sort of like commissions me for the project, Alka Hest, I'm going to shout them out, does a lot of like TG stuff, but we try to very much tackle it in a very interesting and funny, engaging way. But doing Pearl Necklace was so fun because I think it started off with like, he said, "Oh, I want you to do like a androgynous person transforms into a big titty, big dick MILF and stuff like that." And I'm like, well, what if we get a bit more creative with it? Like what if we go back into like a sort of porn version of the 1990s, And there's a lot of like interesting research into like the background aesthetics of this. What was the name of that actor from The Nanny or something like that?
Fran Drescher?
Fran Drescher, yes.
Yeah,
we did a lot of research on Fran Drescher for like looks and aesthetics.
Oh my god.
We also wanted that Peggy Bundy kind of look as well.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun just sort of like doing all this, and also
it makes
making
so
like
much sense now.
These VHS effects of like the transitions and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. And then we just like go into the absurdity of like, what if somebody lives in like a hypersexualized porn world, but like, they're just a normal person,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, I mean, last thing before we move on, but like, I also like Shapeshifter X because like that. I like that she's discovering her body and her abilities and everything. And then, she has like the one chick who's into it. And then she's like, "Watch this. What do you think now?" And it's just like, what are you getting all big and buff for? What's with that? And that subversion I really like because everybody would expect like, oh, she just turned into like the big muscle mommy. Now the fucking will begin. And instead it's just like, what's that for? Not even making fun, just like genuine curiosity, and then just like a reflection of that. And I love that. And if you ever get back to it, cool or not, but I that's what sticks with me about it more than anything is that moment of why.
Yeah, pretty much. We almost self-reflect during our nuts, why?
Yeah. Oh man. Are there any actually, let me start that sentence again. I think that sometimes there is a kind of perception that people are only considered like a quote unquote TF artist as long as they're making TF content. And I find that, oftentimes, and we've kind of talked about this in other episodes, but like people will feel like they're being put in a box when maybe you want to do something else. So I'm curious to know, do you feel like there might be a future where you want to shrug off that label to focus on other things that matter than you or matter to you? Or do you think like this kind of like niche in terms of the content you're creating is going to be your mainstay for the most part?
Oh, definitely. I think I'd like to try different stuff in the future, but like I think I'm genetically hard-coded to do TF stuff. Like I can't get away from that. That's like my human nature right now.
Yeah.
Like even if I had the choice of like, Lemon, here's like $1 million, you don't have to do porn ever again. I think the next day I'd be like, I don't think I just want to draw some more titty, And
I love it.
I think that's definitely something I would want to do. As far as being like associated as a TF artist, I don't know. I don't mind it at all. I think that I still want to try and take away the stigma of being known as a not safe for work artist and make it a very much more respectable occupation. So I have no qualms with like whatever people want to label me. I want to be like, I still want to like explore different mediums. Like right now, last year I was dipping my toes into animation, and I want to get more into that. And I'm working on a big animation right now to hopefully have ready in this year. So I want to be at least known as a multifaceted artist. At least that regard.
I'm glad to know it. I wanted to ask the question simply because you've been doing it for so long, and then I've mentioned this before, as like Zil said, but it's just it's just something that happens, and people are like, oh, well, we lost another one, or they went missing, or suddenly they stopped making art. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, people do want to move on, but I ask also because people make it weird sometimes when you don't want to do it anymore, or even don't want to do it for a span of time. And also I end up wanting to just know how the artist feels about what they're making in general, because I don't think anybody really, I think people will say like, oh, just draw what you enjoy, LemonFont, it's good, we're here for you. But in reality they're not really concerned with it most of the time. They're just like, man, you're gonna keep drawing the stuff, right?
Draw what you enjoy, please let that be what I like.
Exactly.
That's what it definitely feels like. I think I'll just still be drawing transformation stuff for the time being. At least I think I have enough confidence in my skill that like even if I did something totally left field, I would feel confident enough that I have the execution for people to be like, well, I'm not like into this, but I want to stick around and see what happens, because I think that's something I did like Nicholls, was like people like were initially like, I can't believe you're doing clown comics. In the perspective of 2020 when I first did it, people were like, is this a joke? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? But then afterwards they were just like, please make more clown comics.
I want to call massive bullshit on the people that think, oh, what are you doing? My God, man, the shit. Oh, like, is it so fucking weird? Like, okay, look, perspective-wise, if you've been following Shapeshifter the whole fucking time and see what happens in that, clowns are a step too far. That's strange. The fuck out of here. Even before then, you had, like, other themes and concepts and shit like that, like the imp that fucks with people. She just shows up. Like, oh, come on, is that really any different? I get irritated by people who suddenly start saying like, you're doing a weird thing, because when it happened to me, I immediately gave shit to like the one who was talking to me on stream, because they were like, man, this makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, that makes you uncomfortable? You like to make sure there's blood and cum mixed into your shit, and you want to tell me this is uncomfortable for you? And then you know what?
So wild.
And then you know what that fucker did? Commission me for a piece of that shit.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Oh, jeez.
Damn.
People are weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're all weird.
But you have to be comfortable with it.
Yes.
Comfortable and sincere about being weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a word of the day, sincerity.
Yeah, sincerity. Yeah. That's gonna be the title of this episode, isn't it? It should be.
It should be.
Sincerity with
power,
LemonFont. So. Yeah. Okay, so, all right. Like future, past, all that shit. What are you most interested in doing right now? Is it the animation or is it something else?
So, when I am, as an artist myself, you have, I don't know, 50,000 ideas and enough time in your life to do maybe 10 of them. So that's kind of like where I'm at right now. But definitely, in things I will definitely try to achieve this year. The animation I've got coming out called Red Carpet Revenge, which I did an animation last year, which was called Big for Him, adapted from Waver CD's muscle transformation audio. That was a lot of fun. It was because like that was my first animated project, and I was like, I'll just dive into a 5-minute long animation, fully colored and fully like affected, and it's like, what the fuck was I thinking? So this time I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take it easy, 10 minutes now, so to double that. And then I also ripped out my own script, and I hired voice actors, and I was like, it's gonna be hopefully really big, So Red Carpet Revenge hopefully will come out this year. I've got that like sort of storyboarded out right now, so I just need to do the boring part of inking it and coloring it. So but hopefully that's going to look great. And then definitely more animated projects in the further on. I'm hoping to grow my Patreon to a point where I can hire out help for projects like this. That'd be good. And then aside from the animation, which I think I put really on the back burner because working on it too long can really burn you out. Yeah. So after the Nicholls comic, which will wrap up in about like another page or so don't expect like a lot of follow-up after the last current page or reading it. I'm probably going to do the Nerd Girl transformation comic. I'm still tinkering around with the writing of it, but hopefully I'll have something very special and people can jump on board with that.
Okay.
And then also more Shapeshifter. I'm still working on it. I'm sorry it takes so long between updates. It's hard, No.
No. You have nothing to apologize for, in my opinion. Like you have a level of quality you want to put out, and that just will take as much time as it takes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that with all the Meet the Team videos. Because when people are like, "When's this gonna come out?" When it fucking comes out, because not a single one of those was bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then like another example is have you watched A Fox in Space?
That does feel familiar to me. I should know that, but I don't right now.
It is a Star Fox.
The Star Fox one. Yeah. That's hella good.
That shit has been fascinating, and that guy and the stuff that you tells me echoes the stuff that the artist for that talked about. I listened to a podcast where he spoke to the people who made Lackadaisy Nights.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so they spoke with each other, and the artist was saying similar things like, I like to make it so that when the people are talking, you don't assume that they have to be like anthropomorphic animals. You could hear it off in the distance and we're like, oh, what are they talking about? And follow things, along and the emotion and get with it. The presentation aside, you want to feel like it's natural. And there was that. And also the fact that, he started off with this, he started off with a 10-minute cartoon and, and then he I think it went like 7 years or something for the second episode. And you could see in the episode, but he mentions that, you could tell the animation technique changes partway through. And certain things are a little more improved than the other, so it's like slightly inconsistent. But it's just like the whole interesting journey. And I see you doing that. And he started off like pretty much by himself, and now he's got this third episode, and he's got things very grounded in a technique. And now it's grown to a point where he also can hire out help. I see you being able to do that. I really look forward to if you can get around to that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of points in Shapeshifter where I'm looking back. I was like, oh yeah, this is the update just before I picked up a book on how to draw. Yeah. So it's very fun to just look at that. So, like, oh yeah, I didn't know how to quite draw collarbones right there. And it's like, it's always fun to just go back and at least you got to like learn to love your flaws, learn to know that like, sometimes you look back at your art and you might like cringe or like wince and be like, oh, I'm just so bad. But you gotta learn that like it's good that you feel this way and that you at least show that you learned, and you have grown from the experience. And that's like, and then it makes you appreciate how far you've come from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
transformation is real.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Wow, my favorite trope.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. We did have an audience question that I wanted to make sure we got to.
Sure.
We'll see how it goes. So we had a question from Comic King. It's very specific. And so the question is, what are your thoughts on the That's So Raven episode where Raven and Chelsea turn into cows? I don't even know if you've even seen that episode.
No, I'm sorry, but I've never seen a single episode of That's So Raven.
That's okay.
But the episode where she turns into cows, yay, thumbs up, cool.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a drop off in terms of the questions we've been getting. So this is a reminder to everyone listening to leave us comments with questions so that we can have questions.
And I'm going to send satisfying answers.
Yeah,
I'm going to send my crew over, and they'll be swamping you with questions after this.
Okay, great, so. Perfect.
I appreciate
questions
it.
For days. Yeah,
we'll get to all of them eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Artist after this episode, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I never seen the fucking show. Oh my god.
Am I the only one who's seen this?
Huh?
Am I the only one here who's seen the episode?
You have.
I know of it.
Yeah,
but I've never seen it.
Okay,
say something.
You finished Libra. You finished Libra. You were gonna say something.
All I was gonna say was that the only reason I knew about it was because I was hunting for clips of chicks turning into stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck is that so Raven? And I open it up, I'm like, oh, this is some like hokey sitcom shit. And I just from watching it, I had no idea this was a show. I'm like, I guess the girl's name is Raven, and nobody's turning into a raven. Fuck us.
No one is indeed turning into a raven, which is.
I hope that's your review on the IMDb page.
Yeah, why is no one turning it into a raven?
1 star.
So I was just looking. So the show aired from 2003 to 2007. That was the time frame. So I don't know. Apparently, I saw some That's So Raven back in when it was airing, I guess. And anyways, I think it was more my sister's interest at the time in terms of watching it. But I remember seeing the episode, and I thought it was pretty decent. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I definitely had a bit of like, because again, I was younger at the time. I was like, oh, should I not like be interested in this right now while I'm watching this? Because I'm getting the feeling maybe I shouldn't be. Because clearly this is intended for a certain audience. Yeah. So it was funny though, because like at the time I was still very like unsure about my sexuality, and so for me I was like, oh, it's funny. This is a comment that I see a lot of times under like MTF TFs, for example. It's like, oh, wouldn't this be hot if it was a guy turning into a woman instead? In my mind, it was like, oh, wouldn't it have been hot if they were dudes instead? But like, we've come back around on the, me figuring out my bisexuality, and I can be like solid thumbs up now. But yeah, I didn't think it was like the pinnacle or anything, to be clear. I just thought they did like a good job with it, and that was it. It's just, whatever. I know it's formative clearly for some people, and I respect that, but I was like, yeah, this is solid, 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't really have much else to say.
If we haven't got any audience questions, I consider myself an audience, and I want to supposit a question to the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. We were about to say, do you have any questions for us?
So one more thing, though. Do you want to posit this one and then ask a follow-up question? Because we usually give a question, like, anyway, to guess.
Oh, we can. I mean, the guests can have as many questions as they want.
Okay, sure. All right.
So, yeah,
fine.
go for it.
We're in the seat.
Yeah, sure. What was your, let's say, inception point of transformation? What media or like moment in your life where it was like, oh,
yeah. So I've given a few variations of this question before. So the one I often say will be Animorphs, because the covers of the books.
Oh, hell yeah!
That was like
Animorphs.
Very much when I was growing up. I was like, I want all of these.
And you get a good story attached to it as well.
Yeah, like who doesn't love a story about traumatizing children with war? Like this
Hell
is
yeah.
like children soldiers, guys. This is like the hot and poppin' topic from the 90s. So solid one there. There was an educational CD-ROM that I played from the Magic School Bus that was about dinosaurs, and it had the kids turning into half dinosaurs, half people.
Oh.
Definitely set off some alarm bells in my brain of like, whoa, what's going on here? I think if I had to identify one more, there was this. So there was this show that used to air on Cartoon Network, and I don't know how like much traction it got outside of like Canada. So this might be one of those weird like this is only a Canadian thing. But there is this show called Cyber Chase that I remember distinctly had like at least 1 or 2 episodes with TF in it as well. And I remember like that would air back and back with like other TV shows that were like more like quote unquote normie. So it would like come up from like whatever. But that one I think had some TF in it. I'd have to go back and like look into it, but I remember distinctly associating that show with TF, even if I don't remember exactly what it was. So I'm sure if I went back, I would find something. But there was TF in that show, and I was like, I'm sure this won't affect me later in life, and stuff like that.
Anyway, welcome to TF Tuesday, everybody.
Yeah, welcome to the TF Tuesday podcast. How about you, Libra?
I've also told like this before, but there was some movie, I've never been able to identify it again. Somebody was turning into something, probably a werewolf. I remember like a blue filter or something, so I guess maybe it was a night scene. And I came away with that at 5 years old just thinking, I want to see way more of that. And so then like time passed and I kept scoping out sci-fi movies to see if somebody would turn into stuff. I remember seeing Stargate and being like, oh, what was that thing? But it was just a helmet. In retrospect, I'm like, nobody's actually changing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept hoping in some kind of sci-fi movie somebody else would turn into something, like in The Fly, because then I saw The Fly and I was just like, this is really interesting. And I love poring over the horrific details because it's just, what the fuck? What does any of this mean? You know? But let me see. There was that first clip, and then there was like the stuff along the way. Then there was Species, because I'm just like, oh,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand this as an 11-year-old.
Oh yeah, Manimal too. I saw some Manimal clips when I was very young, and that I was like,
yeah,
Manimal.
But I keep bringing it up, and I'll bring it again. I think it was Parasite Eve that finally flipped the switch, because when I watched Eve change, I was just like, I want to keep seeing this. I want to watch it over and over and over. Oh yeah, okay.
Let me just hit load on my memory card on my PS1 and go back to that moment. You know, I wonder why.
and now I can just casually beat that game. and yeah, then from there I was just like, okay, this is a thing for me. So yeah, that's like the spark was like really was lit, like was there like early on, but then it finally clicked when like Parasite Eve hit.
Right, cool.
Kind of wanted to know the same about you, but that wasn't really like at the beginning. I'm willing to hear you out if you feel like it.
Yeah, I think I've got like a couple of moments in my life where I was like, oh, okay, this is all right. One of them was, God, this is so embarrassing, but have you ever seen this sitcom called Caroline in the Big City?
Yep.
No, I haven't.
It's a nothing sitcom. Don't like go back and be like, oh, maybe it was good. You know, it's crap. You know, it's like Ellen or Helen or Sybil, all that kind of stuff. But there was one part where, you know, she's on an airplane. No, she's thinking about getting a breast implant. And then there's one episode where she's like, has like a little fantasy of like what would happen if she had bigger breasts. And then she's on this airplane, and then people are sort of gawking over her bust size. And then, because I don't know, think of like the pressure of the airplane is causing them to expand. And I was like, oh, why am I into this? But that's like sort of expansion stuff. But I think with transformation stuff, I think I share a lot of people's Inception point with Bartok to Ludmilla, if you're familiar with that character.
Very much so.
That's a very popular point for a lot of TF aficionados to be like, oh yeah, I was there, you know.
Yeah.
But also, I think I'm the only person who ever had this experience, but like, I remember watching a British animated movie called Freddy as FR07, or also known as Freddy the Frog. It's a 1992 British animated film with Ben Kingsley. And
interesting.
I think the part I can definitely remember vividly was like, it's about this anthropomorphic frog who is a secret agent who uses magic under His Majesty's service. Very weird, I know, right?
Sounds very British.
Very British, right? And the part of the origin story was they go to a pond and they find a random frog and transform them into like a man kind of like frog thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, okay, I was weirdly obsessed with that. And that's where it comes back to today. That's where I'm here now.
That's really fucking cool. I don't know why. Maybe it's because people have made frog characters like that before that it looks familiar, or I don't know if I've ever glanced at it passing.
Yeah. I think when you draw a cartoon frog, there's not much deviation in design.
At least in that time, when you wanted to make like a Don Bluethy Disney type thing, which is what it looks like.
Yeah,
I don't know if it is Don Bluth as well. That's the weird thing about it. I feel like it always comes back to Don Bluth when it comes to transformation stuff.
Well, that's why I said both of those, because you could tie that kind of look to either one of them. I feel this is directed and written by John Asefsky.
Yeah, there's not even a Wikipedia article for the director, which is very interesting.
David Ashton, John Asefsky, produced by John and Norman Friggin. Yeah, it's production, blah blah blah. Yeah, nobody that I was aware of, but cool. Yeah. I also like this FR07 because secret agent, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But cool.
I don't know if that quite translates as a pun, but yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it, especially now since like I'm kind of the frog guy. So like,
you are very much the frog guy. So
guy.
So, but like, yeah, man, thanks for answering that question. Anything else to put us on the seat for?
I usually ask this question as an icebreaker in any conversation, and it always goes down to hit. But what is your favorite Pokemon?
Favorite Pokemon? I have
not been so able hard.
To pick one. Like, it used to be Charizard, and then after a while I was just like, I don't know. So now there's like a few that I go back to. So I'm just like, Reuniclus, and I like Gardevoir, and Vaporeon, like all the Mimi shit, except for Reuniclus, where I'm just like, it's such a cool, weird little thing. I love it.
Yeah.
It has so much potential. Oh, and Esper.
Oh yeah, Esper. Yeah.
I love Esper. That little thing is just made of love to me. I don't care what anybody says.
Hell yeah. It's really hard for me to pick one. I am one of those kinds of people who, and I literally pulled it up. I have a spreadsheet
what?
Of the Pokemon. Hold on. Let me finish.
Okay.
I have a spreadsheet of the Pokemon, like species of Pokemon that I want to eventually get art of myself transforming into, and I have bolded like my favorites on that list. So I've tried to narrow it down. It's still difficult. I'm honor bound to mention Umbreon off the top because that is definitely the Pokemon that I have the most merchandise of. But I think solid other mentions include Luxray, Lucario, Flygon, Lugia, and Gengar, and Dragonite. That's like 7. That's not that's not even like 5. But anyways, if I had to narrow it down, I don't know, probably somewhere in that realm. If I really had to pick, I would probably say Umbreon.
I was gonna say the top should be Umbreon for you.
Yeah, I think it is. I think just like it's one of those, to use the Katamari analogy, like, you know, sometimes I pick up other things and that like supplants it for a bit, but I do always come back to Umbreon. So I think it is Umbreon.
Yeah.
If you had to pick, your desert island Pokemon,
Yeah,
it's going to be Umbreon. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be Umbreon, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I myself would probably go for just Gengar,
Gengar is such a good choice. I support this.
I'm surrounded by Gengar lovers, and I'm just
you can't fault it. It's just perfect design. I don't know what to say. It's just big smiley ghost boy,
Yeah.
Who doesn't love that?
I always liked Haunter more.
It doesn't hit the same.
Nah, I like the idea of the disembodied hand. It reminds you of that one boss from Zelda. So yeah, I like that. But I just like Gengar's. He's got that mischievous look on him. He's always sticking his tongue out. That's just chef design.
Think it's very good.
I think I just like the pointy teeth on Haunter. It's just like
that's a good point. I do like teeth in the silhouette of the mouth. Yeah, that's always like a nice character design.
Yeah. But okay, so you got Gengar lovers, and there's me, the meme guy. I liked these things before they were constantly horny, except for Uniclus, which people forget about. Blah. I'll do my own stuff when I can find a proper idea.
Fair enough.
Oh man!
All right, but hey, it's been great talking to you. Fucking awesome. Thanks for coming on. Please tell everybody where to find you, where to pay you, support you, just like fucking follow your stuff to enjoy it when it comes out.
My PayPal is send money there. I don't fucking want it. I gotta do that one day on a podcast. Just only link my PayPal.
For what cause? To give me money, bitch. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to know the rest of the socials? Pay up, huh? No. My name is LemonFont. If you Google that, you will find me pretty quickly. But I'm also at lemonfontcomics.com. My Twitter is at lemonfont. If you just want the art, you can just do at lemonfont with a 1 at the end of it. So you don't have to put up with me doing shit posting or talking about magic cards I want to get, if that's not your bag. Just type in LemonFont, you'll find me. What if it looks vaguely like me? It is me. And there you go.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Wait, would you like to mention the podcast that you have as well?
Yes. We also do, with me and my co-host Milk, we do a podcast called Nymphomercial. Search that up. It's on Spotify. We do episodes about reviewing hentai and various other hentai tropes. We go over the multifaceted history of it, and we have a lot of fun. Please check it out.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Oh, real quick, because you talk about hentai. Have you ever heard of Spaceship Agaruder?
It's not coming to mind, no. What's it about?
Have you heard of Tenchi Muyo?
Yes, I love Tenchi Muyo.
You watched the OVA?
I just watched what was on Toonami in the UK in the 1990s, early 2000s. So if there was an OVA in there, no.
Okay, so the OVA was the first thing to air, and then they and that was on Toonami, and then they did Tenchi Universe, and then they did Tenchi in Tokyo.
Right, yeah. I think I watched a bit of up to Tenchi. I watched the first part that aired, then bit of Tenchi Universe. I think I stopped around Tenchi in Tokyo.
Okay, so fun fact is that the OVA, those things are their own universes. They're not related to each other. The original Tenchi Muyo, that is actually that is actually in the same universe as Spaceship Agaruder, a 4-episode hentai made by the same guy. And when I found that out, I was incredibly amused because it takes place I don't know how many hundreds of years before the story, but they're oh yeah, that's in the same exact universe, just way in the past. Oh. And I'm huh. And wouldn't you know it, it features a chick who turns into a beastly version of herself.
Amazing.
And because I think it's worth watching anyway, she is a super powerful beast, but then also she can turn into this really small, cute version of herself, and she can only change when she comes, because it's porn. Go ahead and find it and talk about it. But if you still like Tenchi, I think you'll be amused to watch the 4 episodes. You could definitely tell it's the same guy who made it.
That does bring up an interesting question. Does Launch from Dragon Ball change when she comes as well? Because that's kind of like a sneeze, you know?
You know what? I'm gonna have to say yes, because it's just like a sudden spike in whatever.
Yeah.
I would have to say so. But yeah, hentai podcast, I'm down to watch that because I've watched my fair share, and I'm just like, I got opinions.
Yeah, we're the good one, so check it out.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Lemon, for coming on again. And thank you so much to everyone for listening. I hope you all had as enjoyable a time listening to this as we did recording to it. And in the meantime, please leave us more comments so we have more interesting questions on the podcast for future artists. And, continue to stay hydrated, keep an open mind, and stay TFy. And we'll see you back here again next week.
Yep. Explore the darkness with your friends.
See ya.
Baby? Baby? Oh, Lemon.
All that sex for nothing.